Hey guys, this is Cassandra Schaefer from Pattern. Thanks so much for joining today's webinar, Dramatically Increasing Amazon Conversions via Effective Content and Storytelling. Like I said, I'm Cassandra Schaefer. I am the Marketing Manager here at Pattern. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Pattern, we're a top 5 Amazon third-party seller with 12 offices globally, and we help brands like Clorox, Panasonic, Sylvania, Yogi, and some of the awesome brands that we have featured here on our webinar today. For our panel today, we're joined by 5 brands, and including industry experts, Josh Mendenhall, who's our VP of Creative at Pattern, Lindsay Rich, who's the e-commerce manager for Kong, Adam Bramsman, who's the e-business director of professional brands at Atrium Innovations, Katie Sharp, the e-commerce director from PopSockets, will be joining us in a bit, and then also Corey Dodson from Passload. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, and we're going to send around the recording to registrants as well as attendees later today. If you have any questions or would like to submit any questions to our panelists for the Q&A, just feel free to use that Q&A chat as we go. All right, with that being said, we're going to get started. As everyone knows, in the world of e-commerce today, there's a lot of challenges that brands face around pricing control and compliance, but also around creating effective content for conversion and talking to our customers effectively. So with that, we're going to get into some of our questions and talk to some of our panelists about certain challenges that they're facing as a brand. And as we ask you your first question, feel free to introduce yourself so everyone can know who you are and know what we're talking about as we go. All right, so getting into it, let's start off with Adam. Do you want to talk about some of the challenges that you are facing as a brand when it comes to content?
Yes, happy to. Hi, my name is Adam Bramsman. I'm the e-business director at Atrium Innovations Professional Brands, and we're a portfolio of nutritional supplement products and brands selling directly to healthcare practitioners and their patients. Just for context, so when we first came to Amazon and recognized it as a channel that we had to manage and grow, we would consider the online e-commerce marketplace as being what we call the wild, wild west. It was absolute chaos. And coming into it, it was poorly managed and for the most part mismanaged. There was no standardization of content. More critically, there was content floating around, and that really sort of painted a negative picture of the brand, of the products, very inaccurately. And in the space that we're in, it's a highly regulated environment with claims and what you can and can't say. And as a brand, we decided that we really had a responsibility to fix that for our healthcare practitioner customers and also their patients. Knowing that Amazon, more than any other e-commerce channel, was really considered the ultimate authority and source for content, reviews, trust, etc. And that's where we partnered with Pattern in the very beginning to fix it, clean it up.
Sorry, I muted myself. Corey, what about you? Can you talk about some of the content challenges that Passload was facing from an e-commerce perspective?
Yes, hi, I'm Corey Dodson with Passload. So we're a manufacturing company that specializes in high-end, like commercial-grade products used for building homes, remodeling houses, things of that sort. And our focus as a company has been on our larger channels. Our company, really preaches and believes in 80-20. And from our standpoint, Amazon was a 20 because we didn't have the sales through it. But the fact of the matter is kind of what Amazon will tell you is that, 15% or so of your sales should be through Amazon, and they're also the world's largest reviewed site. So we looked at it, and I started going out and looking at what we had online, and it was a stock image a picture of the tool with a white background, and that's it. Three or four bullet points that had been loaded anywhere between 5 and 15 years ago. Who knows? Just when the product came out, we put them on, and that was that. We walked away. And we started looking at it, and we weren't even owning our pages. Other distributors were putting distributors of our product were putting products online, and they were the one actually selling it through Amazon. And they were going in and making updates to the product pages, creating additional bullet points. So we didn't own our own brand at all. And, sometimes it looked like some guy out of the garage of his house was managing our page, which unfortunately he probably was. So that's when we made the decision, understanding that even though Amazon is not going to be anytime in the near future our number one place of business, it's extremely important for us to be represented correctly, because in our core channels like Lowe's and Menards and Home Depot, they're reviewing our products on there. So not only do we want to grow our business on Amazon, but by better profiling ourselves on Amazon, it will actually help our business outside of Amazon as well. So that's when we kind of made the decision to partner with Pattern and start having pages that look like they should.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Lindsay, I know that you said that Kong was facing some similar challenges that Corey was talking about. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lindsay Rich. I'm the e-commerce director over here at Kong. We are the largest dog toy company in the world. Oh, yep. As you can see, that's probably what you know Kong by, is that little red shape. But we had just a rampant unauthorized reseller issue, and content was constantly being changed. We actually had a 1P relationship with Amazon prior to us working with Pattern, and no matter what we did, no matter how many cases we opened, content wouldn't stay the same for probably even more than 5 days. So I think our biggest concern here at Kong was the safety of the animals and your pets at home, and incorrect sizing, incorrect information, incorrect use of the product was always being claimed. The word indestructible, which is a big no-no here at Kong, was constantly being used. Old images would appear out of nowhere. Kong puppy products used to have like a marbled color. So people would think that they would be getting like a pink and blue Kong, and they would end up with just a pink Kong because we had updated that. So it was just really a poor experience for the consumer across the board. So when we started working with Pattern, that was our number one focus was, well, outside of unauthorized resellers and that process for reseller policies, was updating that content. And it continues to be a challenge, but it's something that's so much more manageable, that things aren't changing every 24 hours or even every 5 days. It's maybe once or twice a month that something changes and we can get that updated right away.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And Lindsay, you touched on this a little bit with some of the things that you said. Can you continue on and talk to us a little bit about what it was like creating an effective brand voice on Amazon?
Yeah, so I work with our brand team, and our brand team works with the Pattern creative team. And a lot of that information of what is an effective brand voice, I think Kong really has a great idea of how we want to speak about the brand and how we want the brand to be perceived. But a lot of what we had done internally at Kong was talking to specialists in the pet world, so vets and breeders and trainers and those kind of things. And we didn't really necessarily speak to direct to consumer very often. And that's really what Amazon is. Even though we aren't shipping direct to consumer, our content is direct to consumer. So we really had to start back at step one. And so the Pattern team has done a really great job of helping us organize that information and what we need through looking at reviews and questions and why product is being returned, and help us really try to answer those questions. Our biggest focus is through visuals, so through images in our image stacks and A+ pages, because that's how people are shopping really on desktop and especially on mobile. So how can we answer those questions that the customer is asking or reasons why they're returning the product? Try to get that information out to them before they even get the product. So that way their pet can be safe before they get the item.
Awesome. And yeah, that's great. I want to talk to Katie Sharp a little bit here from PopSocket. I mean, PopSocket is all about brand voice and talking specifically to their customers and creating some of these personas. So Katie, can you introduce yourself and then talk to us a little bit about creating that brand voice on Amazon?
Sure. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Katie from PopSockets. I'm the e-commerce director for the PopSockets involving marketplace businesses. So Amazon, and I lead the Pattern partnership. Brand voice has been pretty interesting on Amazon, right? So it's like we started off with this weird little gadget that goes on the back of your phone, and we didn't really have so much of a voice. I've been with the organization about 2.5. It's just 2 years. It just kind of feels like 20 sometimes when you're at a startup. So Becky Gebhardt, who is our CMO, she came on, built a team up and the brand behind PopSocket. So we changed the way that our brand looked. We made it a lot more inviting. And when you have 500 SKUs, you want to make sure that that's actually put across the Amazon site or other sites for that matter. The biggest challenge that we've typically had is resources, and what has been instrumental is the Patterns team to create some of these assets with Amazon in mind. One of the things with Amazon is we're one of the top 10 search terms on Amazon as PopSockets, and how do we continue to, one, keep that market share, and two, also engage with new customers and new products. So when we do launch a new design or a new material, that it actually tracks very strongly from the get-go to kind of make a more evergreen core product. And the Pattern kind of relationship has been instrumental in understanding the focus and the direction and like the visual aspect of our brand on Amazon. So it's worked out, but it's terrifying sometimes, right? When you're looking at a big box retailer, you don't want that Amazon is, you don't want to eliminate any consumers because they're like, you know what, I'm not into graffiti. Or you're like, well, I didn't want to kill that market share. So those are the things that we're pretty cognizant of different materials when there are things that are more trend or seasonal, that we can be a little bit more fun in some cases. And then when there are things that are a little bit more traditional, like an aluminum, that we're making sure we're at a closer audience. So this is actually from the most recent shoot that Elise on the Pattern team did. And we were really thrilled with kind of the representation in our senior marketing brand director, blah, 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 all these titles. She was Melanie, who I've worked with for a number of years. She was like, this is some of the best stuff I've seen. So she was very pleased with the outcome. So we're looking really forward to getting this live on the site.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Katie. I think that takes us a little bit into our next question about brands can be concerned that if they're going to partner with an agency like Pattern or like someone else, they might lose control of their brand and that messaging. So Corey, do you want to talk a little bit about this and what your experience has been like, or maybe that was an initial concern for you?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, man. Sorry. My apologies. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Most of our content is created externally today. Not necessarily what's on Amazon, but what you might see in advertisements or on Home Depot or Menards.com. So our internal marketing team had some concerns over, keywords, key phrases. We sell framing nailers. We don't sell framing guns. I mean, there's like small tweaks and things, and people were concerned about how that would work. But Pattern has, created a lot of content and imagery for us, and it all goes back to us for approval. We have kind of final say, and then it goes back out. So they've really done a nice job of kind of refreshing what we look like, and then using our knowledge of our customers to blend, what works on Amazon with who our customer is. For example, we know if a guy, like the number one best way to get a guy to trust something is to see one of his fellow workers use it. So if he sees a guy that looks like him using the framing nailer, it speaks to him a lot more than just a stock image of it, that kind of thing. So it truly is a partnership, which has been really good. And, you know, and they're the experts on Amazon, which we are not. And so kind of blending the two sides, with us being the experts in construction and Pattern being the experts on Amazon, it's been a really nice mesh while we still ultimately have control.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, I want to talk to you a little bit about this. We've worked we've worked with Pure for a while, and I want to get your insight on what it's been like, and maybe it was an initial concern about losing control of your brand and how that's been.
Yeah, for brands like ours, when health and wellness are on the line for consumers, knowing that the product that they're purchasing from us is a consumable, also in an industry that's extremely highly regulated from a safety and a claims standpoint, products that are being recommended by doctors for very specific medical conditions, consistency, credibility, safety for consumers, and trust in that brand are extremely important, and frankly, they're paramount to our strategy. And we believe that the only way to do that is to provide a very consistent digital experience and e-commerce experience across all of your channels, whether it's Amazon, whether it's other marketplaces, whether it's e-pharmacy or e-retailers. When we're operating today in an omni-channel world where consumers want to be informed, they want to do their own research across multiple channels. That also includes brick and mortar, and then, you know, in most cases will often make their final purchase online. So the work that we're putting in with Pattern to really tell the story in an accurate way, but in a safe and regulatory compliant way via Amazon is key to helping to grow all of our channels, and frankly, very, very important.
Yeah, awesome. I'd like to get some insight here from Josh, who's our VP of Creative. Josh, you work with brands all the time. Talk to us a little bit about how you help them maintain control and consistent brand messaging as they partner with Pattern.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Josh Mendenhall. I'm the VP of Creative here at Pattern. And it's really, for me, it's super fun to be able to work with these brands that have, most of them already have like a really strong brand identity. They spend a lot of time and effort on their brand equity. And one of the things that I always say is, even when we're pitching new brands or we're talking to brands that we've done business with for a long time, is we want to make sure that the brand is represented how they want to be represented. We want to make sure that the equity that they've built, they've spent time, effort, money into building, translates over to these different marketplaces that we sell on. So we don't want it to feel like a Pattern brand. We don't want it to feel like Amazon. We don't want it to feel like Walmart. We don't want it to feel like those brands. We want to carry over that brand equity. And if you can actually go, can you go to some of the Pure examples, Cassandra? So what we were trying to do with some of this stuff, and we work really closely with these brands, making sure that they feel like they are represented in the way that they have always wanted to be. Our goal is to make sure that these brands that we work with, feel like we're just sitting next to them. Like we have a desk in their office, and that's kind of the feel that we want them to have. Anytime they have a question or anytime we produce anything, we actually will send it over to them and make sure that they feel really good about it. I know most of the brands that we work with, they don't necessarily have, three in-house photographers, video team, production designers, but that's something that we do have. And so we want to be able to deliver those resources and just give those resources to the brands that we work with. And for instance, with Pure, like in these shots here, one of the things that we wanted to do, we wanted to make sure that the color felt right with Pure. We wanted to get some warmth into their brand. If you go to the next slide, this will show you some, just again, so these aren't photos, these photos are actually stock photos that we've used, But the idea is that we wanted to make sure that the brand was consistent. And if you listen to all the other panelists, words that they're using is this consistency. And that's kind of, I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to do is be consistent across the brand, making sure it feels like them. And that's what we've done with all of these brands, is making sure that we're just being very consistent in their brand guidelines, their visuals.
Yeah, for sure. That's super important. And as you know, time goes on, the way that brands talk to their customers evolve, and you have to change and still keep the feel of the brand. So I want to talk a little bit about how your brand, let's talk to you, Lindsay, actually. How has your brand evolved over time in the way that you talk to customers, directly to your customers, and how has that evolved and impacted your content on some of these marketplaces?
Yes. So I think one of the biggest ways that you could see that Kong has evolved is really talking about the size of the product and trying to put safety first. So thinking about a lot of the questions that we get on Amazon, such as, what size do I get my 11-week-old puppy? So really trying to communicate, like, what does small mean? So you can see in the bottom left corner, small breed up to, what does small breed mean? Up to 20 pounds. But then we always indicate, when in doubt, size up for safety. So I think that is one way that it was clearly communicated on all of our packaging. And that's something that you can see in brick and mortar, but you wouldn't necessarily see on e-commerce. So it's something that we're trying to find a way to help scale the item so people understand how big the item is, but also understand what the safety would be for the item. So we always relied on our packaging to say that, but now we're trying to rely on imagery. So I think that's probably one of the biggest ways that you would see a change in how we communicate, because though we show the packaged image through our image stack, we're trying to communicate that earlier in the message as well. And we've really seen questions that are being asked, and I think just overall fewer returns at the end of the day, or fewer complaints that would come through either to Pattern or to Kong directly.
Absolutely. Adam, let's pass it back to you. Let's talk a little bit about Pure and some of the things that you guys have changed over time.
Yeah, I think a couple of points. One, for our brands, which aren't distributed in traditional retail, food, drug, mass, et cetera, it's important to leverage e-commerce and Amazon to provide a space where consumers can really learn about your brand and about your product. And as a premium brand, I think somebody else mentioned this too, it deserves a premium experience online for your customers. So for us, it's about having and providing high quality, accurate information, and really telling a story in an intimate way digitally that allows your consumers to emotionally connect with the brand and the product and tap into their own core values aligned with ours, with our brands. And for us, it's really about two key elements. And this is how we structure our projects, how we work with Josh and his team. And on the one side, it's about the brand, and it's about building consistent, like he said, relatable storytelling, evergreen brand content that can be used on all detail pages, all products, storefronts, et cetera, that really tap into those core values, allow the consumers to relate and feel good about getting behind your brand. And number two, it's about product, and specifically it's about specificity. Rather than just telling a consumer what the product does or what it looks like, or how to use it, it's really more about showing them through description, what's in it, why they should use it, how to use it, indications, intended results, but more than that, providing a digital sensory experience through photography and through storytelling content about what it looks like, what it feels like, what it tastes like, and really allowing your consumers to emotionally connect with the product in a way that they may not even be able to replicate if they were holding that product in a retail store. And I think there's a real advantage to leveraging digital content in that way to tell an intimate story about what they're going to be buying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this imagery here and how you're touching on all those points. You're, showing the person and their lifestyle, and you're showing the product and the packaging and providing all this information. It's great. I want to go back to Katie a little bit and talk about what types of content do consumers and specifically your personas and your customers expect, and what are they looking for from a buying and a content experience?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So it's like we've developed a lot of new materials, and we have a lot of core product like black and aluminum that does well. So telling those two different type of personas, like most people, their Amazon business is like a large majority is female. So we're looking at 70+% is female consumers that are buying PopSockets product. So we're trying to capture other ways that we can expand out of that just female consumer with either developing different materials, different type of graphics that do fall into that. And then the way that Elise has portrayed that through our content is by matching our branding efforts that we do have tied into going after some new consumers. So we're growing partnerships like with OtterBox. So we have a product that's like an OtterBox case with a PopSockets top. So it's a collaboration that we have, and that demographic is a little bit different from our typical PopSockets purchaser. So there's the methodology is we have this consumer, let's kind of expand on that base. And people are pretty excited about the product as a whole, but there's different ways that we can tell that story. If it's something with a pug and glasses on it, I don't know the name of this design off the top of my head. I'm sure it's something silly. And my friend Alexis, who designs the product, is like right around the corner from this conference room, so I'm tempted to ask. But that's a consumer where you can have a little bit more fun and engaging content. And we will make that known not only in the imagery, but also in the product description. And vice versa. So if it is something more traditional, we kind of make it a little bit more substantial approach to making it a little bit more narrowed down in kind of the verbiage that we choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk to Corey a little bit, because I know Passload is a completely different customer base than maybe PopSocket. And so how has that evolved, and how has that changed when it comes to your content and how you talk to your customers?
So when we're looking to talk to our customers, we know that the old school way we did it was literally on a job site. We were out, guys were building houses, our sales team would be out there, right there with them and showing them new products and things of that sort. And this allows us to reach such a larger customer base in a shorter time that we want to tell the same story we tell on the job sites in a 5 minutes, 3 minute click through our Amazon page. So we kind of know what is important about it and then kind of focus on those things. You can see here with the images, it's 3 or 4 bullet points that we're drawing out so that they can see how the tool works, what it means, and get that kind of value. And maybe our goal was for them to kind of almost be able to feel like they can know how they would use the tool. And that's dramatically different because now it's online versus being on a job site a couple years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you make some really good points. I'd like to pass it over to Josh Mendenhall to get some of his commentary on this. Josh?
Yeah, so what's really interesting, and I think Corey said it really well, Adam has said it as well. I think everyone's talked about this in a way, but what we're trying to do is we're not just putting an image up there of a product and hoping it sells. We're trying to, like they've all mentioned, we're trying to tell this story through these visuals, not just show like the single image of a pop socket or the single image of a nailer. We're really trying to communicate and educate them through these visuals. So we use these, what we call infographic or storytelling images to do that. But the other thing that you'll notice in a lot of the examples that you've seen that we've done, is there's not just a product with words, but we'll go out and we'll find the right person, because we want there to be this emotional connection. And so we'll cast people for as we go out and shoot different models who fit these personas, because we want it to really be a emotional connection, something that people can aspire to be and really relate to it. And a way that we've done that, and Adam talked about this really well, is we pick out like these kind of categories, and we try to scale it across as many products as possible. But we do know that like in each kind of each brand, there's going to be like some things that don't translate from category to category. So we create like these semi-evergreen images. But that's really what we're trying to do, is to educate the consumer through these visuals by storytelling, connecting with them. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to, yeah, that's a great point. I want to talk to Corey a little bit, because you mentioned a little bit about reviews and helping to build a consumer trust for your brand, and using content and kind of how our partnership started and what happened there. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in the past, we had no control over our reviews. Things would go out. We put new items out. We weren't, they just went on Amazon. So there's no like keyword search optimization or anything around it to kind of drive that profile. And so we had an instance, I'd say probably around a year ago, 9 months ago, where we put a new tool into the marketplace. One person came out and gave it a horrible review, and one person came out and gave it a 5-star. And it sat there with 2 reviews for, I don't know, 6 months. I mean, horrible. And, we really believed it was also affecting our sales in store, and working with Pattern, asking different things that we could do. We did the early reviewer profile, and immediately jumped from 2 reviews to 12 reviews, and went from 3 stars to 4.5. And you really could see an impact, not only with our Amazon sales, but with our sales in stores as well. So it's that, total like blending your traditional marketplace with the omni-channel experience to create wins across both sides. But without knowing how to fix our review problem, I'm not sure we ever would have fixed the issue that we had. So, guys, customers need reviews on Amazon to feel comfortable buying your product.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay or Adam, do you want to comment on this?
So I think something we had seen to increase the consumer's trust is just making sure that we're clearly communicating what they're going to receive. I think that with inaccurate information that was constantly coming up from resellers, even when you would read questions that were being left, or reasons for why returns were happening, that content had likely changed since they originally had purchased it. And so it was really hard for us to see what they were reading and where they were getting information from. So I think overall, the trust in the brand has increased just because there's consistency in information that they're receiving, in the same way that they would get if they were going into a brick and mortar store.
Yeah, for sure. Adam, what about you?
Brand.
Sorry, Adam, you were muted for the first part of that. Can you repeat that?
Yep. I think we're, Atrium and the brands that we sell are unique in that there's a lot of fluidity with our products, with formulas, with ingredient changes, regulatory label changes that we're required to make. And because of that, I think there's nothing worse than, as a consumer, receiving a product that you've paid for and it not matching what it should be and what it shows on an e-commerce site or on Amazon. And I think, one thing that is very, very critical is consistency. And we've talked about this before. It's consistency over the details. And I think when you're telling a story, you're you have to focus on those details in order to really build the trust with the consumer. And that's, I think, what consumers look for, is if you can get the details right and the small changes right to ensure that what they receive is exactly how it appeared when they went to make that purchase. You're building unspoken trust with your consumers, and they're going to come back and continue purchasing from you because they can trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Cool. I want to move along to the next question, and this is an interesting one, so I'm going to just pose it out to the group. Why would you do 3D rendering versus photography for some of your content online? I don't know if we're already on you, Adam. Do you want to talk to that a little bit or pass it to someone else?
Yeah, I'll talk for a second. I think it goes back to something I explained before, and it's about not just telling somebody what the product looks like, but building an emotional connection through more of a sensory look, feel, specificity, what it looks like when you would actually be holding it in your hand or seeing it on a table. As a consumer, at least our consumers, and I'm sure other brands can relate, want to be as informed as they possibly can about what they're going to be buying. The only way to do that is to be fully transparent as a brand and show them everything that you possibly can about that product, before they go ahead and purchase it. And 3D renderings for us are a vehicle for transparency, and it shows them, the little details that may not be super pretty on the back of the label or the disclaimers, or the small details on the ingredients or supplement facts panel. But those are what matter when you're a consumer who's going to be ingesting a product that they're purchasing.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, do you want to comment a little bit on this, on why you would do something like 3D rendering?
Yeah, sure. So we get these requests a lot, and sometimes we'll come down and make it. We'll try to make a smart decision on when it does make sense. Like Adam said, on something like the capsules and pills, like we want to show what's going to be actually someone's going to be putting in their mouth. But as a bottle, like a bottle would make more sense to render, just because there might be a label change. And when we talk about like scalability and how to produce things quickly, like if for instance Pure has a label change, we don't want to have them, or they do their own 3D renders, but if there was another brand, we wouldn't want to say like, hey, send in the bottle, we'll take a picture of it, we'll go do our 360 photography and get every angle. It's just a lot easier to scale quickly if you're like, oh, we can just wrap a new label on it. But and it makes sense to scale in those ways. And there's a couple other examples that we scale in photography. Like the pop socket shots we were looking at, you would notice that all of the pop sockets were actually white. The plan is actually to overlay all the different artwork onto those different types of personas. So we've kind of categorized, okay, this 50 set of artwork will go onto this persona, and then so we'll overlay those. So there's different ways to scale, but it makes a lot of sense to do 3D renderings in like a bottle or a box where you might have updated changes to that packaging. And then other instances, for instance, like on Pop Socket, where you want to show the persona, how can we scale that really efficiently? So it's kind of like just that question of what's going to communicate the best, and how do you scale it quickly?
Absolutely, those are great points. I want to actually keep talking about Pop Socket a little bit and talk to Katie and get her perspective on how content has clarified brand messaging.
Yeah, so we've our product kind of changed a little bit over the past 8 months or so. So we have a couple of new things that have we changed kind of the design where they are swappable, and the other thing is we changed the gel. So how is this content clarified a brand message? Well, now that swappable has become a term that Pop Sockets has used, we're now actually seeing it populate within our search results, in our keyword search results that we have from Amazon. So some of the content that we have that have created that was specific to brand, calling it swappable or pop grip, has actually translated to search results and is proven pretty strongly. So the way that we're communicating this content the best, beyond just doing the bullet points in the product description is actually adding either logos to the images, or in some cases, the feature that this product is swappable within the render itself. So that is something that is something we wanted on the Amazon direct relationship with Vendor Central, and they were like, no, per usual. But this is one of the relationship advantages that we do have, is we are capable of, and then like it changes, right? So it's like, we'll make this design, and you know, it's $1 billion product, but not the brightest people use pop sockets is kind of the way. I mean, the demographic is kind of like skewed toward a little bit younger, sometimes kids. So if they get something that's called opal, they're like, this isn't actually opal. It's like, no, opal costs more than $10. So there is content changes that we then directly make either to the image or the content that does help our credibility, because reviews, as we all know, kind of drive a lot of the revenue that does exist for the brand. So those are some hurdles, challenges, and wins, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay, I want to talk to you a little bit about this too, and kind of how content has influenced the message.
Yeah, so I think to Katie's point, consumers, they buy what they see. And so I think sometimes there's content that is not accurate or was just too generic before. And so it left the mind a lot of room for imagination. So we've really worked on our clarity and consistency. So I think we've all talked on this a lot, but something with Kong is that we have the classic shape that you're seeing right now is everything about the brand. It's what we talk about. It's what we focus on constantly. But so how can we create that consistent imaging throughout our entire catalog that's 500 SKUs deep that we typically don't talk about? So what can we be doing to create the same brand voice and the same brand look while staying true and focused on the item that has gotten us to where we are today, and which is the best item for the consumer, where everything else is more of a commodity. So I think overall, it's just how can we make sure that we continue to use content in a way that's consumable for customers. That's something that no one wants to sit and read for a long period of time, and they can look at it and process that information right away to get the right item.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I want to move on to talk a little bit about like our partnership and what we've done together. Adam, I'm going to pass this over to you because we've had kind of a long running partnership and get your insight. What are some big wins that you've seen from content during our partnership, or just big wins in general that we've seen?
Through specialization. As a company, we recognize that there's certain areas that we specialize in, and that's the formulation, the manufacturing, the commercialization of very high quality dietary supplements. What we also recognize is there's areas that we don't specialize in, and that's telling the story of our products in a way that consumers can understand it, appreciate it, and connect with it. And that's what Pattern specializes in. And so I think, you know, a successful partnership, and in order to win on e-commerce, it requires specialization. And the way Pattern does this is by spending time getting to know the brand, the products, the ingredients. We have over 2,000 products across our portfolio. You know, and I'm not, you know, that's not to say that Pattern knows every single product and every single detail, but they do a great job of disseminating the details into content that can be easily digested and understood by consumers. They also get to know the people, and what I mean by that is us, the people who are responsible for manufacturing and commercializing the products, but more than that, our customers, what they're searching for, what they're gravitating toward through the data that they're collecting on Amazon, and using that data to tell a story visually. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you make some great points. Yeah, I think it's really important for us to maintain the integrity of our brands and their messaging as we partner with them. I want to pass it over to Corey to comment a little bit on maybe some wins that we've seen in our partnership together, or just content wins in general on e-commerce.
So from my standpoint, we've had some great wins on it. One, being a premium product in the marketplace, we want to look like it, and we want to kind of create aspirational photos, or like we want people to want to buy our tools. We know that this tool shown right here is the most expensive pneumatic framing tool in the market. So it needs to look like a premium. It needs to look like something that someone wants to spend an additional $49 for, or $69 for. Or, you know, in some cases versus some of the cheap things that are on Amazon, it could be $129 more expensive. So it needs to look like it. The other nice part is through our partnership with Pattern, I'm no longer having to go back and make changes to pages that maybe some of our unauthorized sellers or, you know, traditional distribution had made to our pages. If you listen to all the different panelists out here, you hear a lot of people that are e-commerce managers or whatever. Well, I run our business with Menards, Tractor Supply, Grainger, as well as our Amazon business. And so through our partnership with Pattern, it's allowed me to put a lot more focus back on to some of our other things and allowed them, being the experts, to handle a lot of this for us and control what we're putting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's super good points that you made. I want to talk a little bit more to Lindsay and Kong and talk about some big ones that we've seen, or give any additional insight or things that you want to add.
Yeah, so I think overall, having a partner in all of this, sometimes in e-commerce, you can feel like you don't know anything and you're really lost. And even if you think you know everything, it'll change in 2 days, something that you feel comfortable with. It can just change overnight. But I think overall, we've seen having that partnership with Pattern really allow us to feel like we're experts in what we're doing, feel a lot more confident in the decisions that we are making, and just allowed us to move forward with confidence in everything that we're doing. I think we are a company who is nervous to make changes in what we're doing, and because we don't know if it'll change in 2 days. And it still might change in 2 days because it's Amazon and it's the internet, but to be able to have that partner and to have that relationship and have our account managers our brand managers be able to know your brand and to know really what your goals are, help you feel comfortable in moving forward with some of those changes that maybe are different than what you had done in the past. So I would say, I mean, that's a huge win for Kong to be able to move forward in some of these different things in the wild, wild west.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, quite a few of you have touched on like this kind of close-knit partnership that we have together, and how. Josh, maybe you want to comment on like what the process is like when a brand partners with us and what that looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So when we work with brands, kind of there's a lot of research that goes into it. Like Adam was saying, like understanding the brand, understanding the product. So our first step is to really understand that brand. We'll ask them for any of their brand guidelines, typography, iconography, colors, photography standards or guides that they have. Because like I said a while ago, is we try to make it look consistent. We just want to be really consistent with what the brand has already been doing. And so we'll ask for all of those kind of assets. If there is any photography that they have, we'll work with them there. Some brands have a lot of great photography. Some brands don't have any photography. And then some brands will also just have gaps that we need to fill. So whatever the case is with the brand, we just try to fill the gap of what they need. We'll work with them. We'll take a product. We'll usually collect product from them if we need to photograph it. We'll kind of come up with like a game plan of how we're going to approach content on these different marketplaces. Whether we want to do more lifestyle, in studio, silo shots on white, whether it's 3D renderings, 360-degree photography and spins. We'll kind of come up with that game plan, and then we'll present it back to the brand and say, this is kind of how we're hoping we would like to go. They will either approve it or say, you know, that you guys are going the wrong direction, or here's some feedback, and then we'll take that and iterate. Once we kind of have the game plan and we have like a concept on, let's say, image stacks, we'll send that concept over. They'll approve it after, you know, feedback and iteration. And then like with Adam and the thousands of products he has, we'll condense all of that information of like, what are the key features and benefits? What are questions that people have about each product? What are some of the reviews people are having? And then we'll condense all of that into a spreadsheet. And then once we have all that information and we have kind of a concept template, we send it out to our production design team. And then they're really quick, and they're just amazing designers that we work with, and they're awesome. I love them to death, but they produce very quickly. They follow that concept. And then once we get that concept back and we get all these images back, we'll go through them, make sure, do some quality control, and then we'll send them over to our brand managers, who will upload them up to Amazon. So that's kind of like the process of how doing image stack content would work. But it's very collaborative. We work with the brands to make sure that they're in the driver's seat, and we're meeting their brand guidelines that they've established.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, that's the questions that I had. I want to get to some of the questions that are being posted on the Q&A. So I'm going to just throw some of these out to the group. Tanner Johnson asks, when you come across issues where a one-piece seller content is updated by other sellers, do you mainly use brand registry to mitigate these issues? Josh, do you want to talk about some of that, or maybe we can pass it on to Adam to answer that?
Yeah, well, we've seen things where, you know, you have a one-piece seller and the content's updated. Our brand managers will just work really closely with Amazon to make sure that we can get that across and actually published. And in some cases, we will use brand registry. But I think it's really a case-by-case scenario for every brand that we've worked with and how they've been able to push content across.
Absolutely.
Yep. I can comment real quick. I think this is where the pattern model of this holistic approach to controlling and managing the Amazon environment is key. And it's a close coordinated effort between Josh's creative team and, like he mentioned, the brand manager, who's monitoring, and, you know, their team is monitoring on a daily basis for duplicate listings, non-compliant or incorrect content. Often we leverage brand registry to do that because it's often the quickest and most efficient way. We also have a very strong authorized reseller policy. Chances are if somebody's standing up new content that we've not approved, most likely they're an unauthorized reseller, and we have other means to have them removed from the marketplace. So it really depends, like Josh said, case by case, but there's a number of tactics we can employ to have it corrected.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Melissa's asking, the brands on the webinar, are they 3P Seller Central or 1P Vendor Central? I think most are 3P, but if you guys just want to run down and answer individually, Corey, then Lindsay, then Katie, then Adam.
So we are 3PE, so exclusive with Pattern. And we went from a first party relationship to the 3PE roughly a year ago.
Yeah, we're in the same story. We went from a direct relationship with Amazon and now working exclusively with Pattern, and have been doing that for over a year, and we've expanded that globally. So that's also, so it's here in the US, Canada, Europe, UK, and Australia.
Katie, 1P, 3P?
We were previously a 1P relationship and have moved to a 3P relationship as of February 2019.
And Adam?
We're just a 3P. We've never actually had a 1P. So perhaps a little bit simpler since we've always had control over the brand. And maintaining that 3P exclusivity through Pattern has been the underlying key to our success.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through as of now, so I just wanted to thank all of our panelists for hopping on the webinar today and answering these questions. And thank you for all of our attendees. Just a reminder, this session was recorded, so we will be sending an email out afterwards, probably later today or tomorrow, to all of the registrants and the attendees to this recorded session, so you can have it and look through it. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.